recorder instead this time. You do the Google thing.
The Google thing?
Yeah, you know, Google Rant, whatever stuff comes to mind.
Googly moogly.
And we can, I can save me a shitload of time and data trying to upload the video later. Welcome to the glorious Dinner in Green Hill little podcast here. So you were talking about the TR3B.
Yeah, so I have a story about the TR3B. I was on my friend's beautiful porch. He has really good landscaping. It's basically my favorite house. And his parents do really good landscaping there. But anyway, I was looking up videos of the TR3B, and I was like, hey, check this out. This is the TR3B. And I was explaining to him what it was and that it's often mistaken for a UFO. But,
yeah. I'll look up the Operation Skywatch guys.
So I mentioned it, and then it showed up. I was about to show him the video. He went in the house, and then the TR3B actually showed up right there.
I'll be right with you.
I have to find this. Is this it?
But so those things travel super fast, right? So
Yeah.
they must have to have a radar trajectory of where it's gonna fly, if it's gonna fly there really fast. So they have to know that there's not gonna be like a plane collision or helicopter or drone or whatever right in that airspace when it's flying there.
I think I found it. I'll just show you the one that goes over the different types. Yeah, these guys are all military dudes, and they're all in like the mind warfare, freaking, you know,
These
Montauk.
YouTube channels?
This YouTube channel is new, basically. Like, I started posting their videos the day they came out, and it's all you know, ex-veteran guys and Montauk Project type, men who stare at goats type, psych warfare, remote viewer type guys. And so they all go get together with a whole bunch of specialized equipment and sit out in a field meditating, thinking about aliens popping up, and they actually record the stuff that pops up in the sky overhead.
Yeah, well, what I know about that is,
So like,
it's not aliens.
well, exactly. I mean, so when we talk about something like the when we talk about the Black Manta, that's like that's the equivalent of a blackbird. There's a dude in there piloting that. So that implies, if you're going with that, then it's either a coincidence or targeting advertisement, listening to your phone, a bot sends a message somewhere, and for whatever reason they're like, yeah, let's fly over Zach's house and bug him.
Well, it wasn't my
You
house.
know.
It was where I was.
If and maybe we could go a little step further and be like, all right, well, let's say, for the hell of it, for the sake of believability, this scenario of your phone communicating targeted advertisement, that's more believable if we go out on a limb for a second and say that it's being piloted remotely. It's being piloted by an AI or a robot, you know? Then I can see that. But I just can't see some military guy getting a notification on his phone and then being like, all right, soldier, I need you to pilot your fucking $6 billion black budget top secret craft over this guy's house.
So it seems very absurd, right?
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
actually did happen. So I would kind of maybe speculate that if it were that
So like
they
I'm
have
thinking
this-
it's one of these like triangular shaped ones that just looks like the manta, and it showed up picking up off your electromagnetic scalar waves that come off your head every time you have a thought. Every time you think a thought, it sends out a whole vibrational pulse into the universe. Maybe something can detect that.
well,
But these guys have it on film.
I don't think they have exactly that technology, like without monitoring someone's head, but
There appears to be some kind of cloud or vapor.
Well, they're doing it just like through meditation and psychic projection, basically.
if that were that they focus on something and it brings some kind of not actual military craft to them, I would actually just say that's Satan
Yeah.
as a deception.
Fallen
And
angel
I
stuff.
have, well, no, I used to think that it would be that. That doesn't even make sense. Like if a human being could say that it's a fallen angel, they don't know the difference between what Satan is to a fallen
You
angel.
never seen the movie Flight of the Navigator?
No.
No, that's a wow. Go watch that. That's a great. It's a great. It's often theorized with that movie that was basically leaked. That the craft that's in that movie is basically the exact description of the kind of weird, seamless type of craft that you're dealing with the fallen angel technology, where it's almost like something that was made out of liquid mercury, just kind of smeared together. There's no cracks or seams or screws or anything. It's one solid piece.
Basically, what I'm saying is that there are these alleged UFOs, but they're not military craft, but they're also not aliens. I've even recorded them. It's not it's not a man-made craft, but I know it's not aliens because I've already recorded it in their orbs, orange orbs.
Yeah.
I had
That's
videos
an energetic
of those.
thing versus a guy in a ship flying around.
No, it's literally satanic.
Yeah. All right.
That's what it is.
That's what I.
But I mean,
Basically
if you were
we're
there
basically
holding
on
a
the same
phone,
page there.
if you were there holding a phone, recording it, and you saw orange orbs and then a UFO. Okay, so basically what I'm telling you is, I recorded orange orbs and then I recorded a literal flying saucer. So the flying saucer I know is not a military craft and it's not an alien craft. It was Satan showing off the fact that he can deceive people to think that that's a UFO. I had videos on my phone, but I was also being followed by these legions of the Antichrist, which they were just staying above the house that I was living at. I go to record it, and it'd say serious camera failure on my phone.
Huh.
Also, while I was being
Took all
human
of these
trafficked, by the
individuals
way.
that were making these claims, and we said, prove it. You claim that we can summon things in the sky. Prove it to us. We've got the sensors, we've got the team, we've now assembled everyone.
It's actually not summoning it, it's that Satan can just use the
Well,
idea that...
mate, similar to the
So people-
spirituality conversation that we were having before, I mean, I may not have made my position exactly super clear on the shit. I mean, you can take morally what I think and just sort of apply it to bog standard Christianity. But at the end of the day, when I bring in the whole scientific thing and talk about that, kind of like Warhammer, if you know any of the lore of Warhammer. Like, from what I've gathered from the Warhammer universe, God exists in their lore, and so do demons and Satan and everything. But they're advanced enough as to where...
I don't know what Warhammer is.
You don't know
There's a video
Warhammer
game.
Warhammer.
Isn't it like
Space
Warhammer
Marines,
24K or
Warhammer
something?
40K. Space
Okay.
Marines. So in their universe, God exists and demons exist and everything. They're a spacefaring empire, big, huge galactic fleet and everything. they've gotten technologically advanced to the degree where, just like I say, like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Well, so I say, how would I want to word this? Any sufficiently advanced technology could distinguish divinity from more technology. Meaning, I don't think it takes away from, like, we're using divinity in the same way that we use magic to describe something that we don't understand. And I don't think it takes anything away from God to be able to point out, oh, but that's ones and zeros floating in a cloud of electricity in space that's able to manipulate the movement of particles and the outcomes of things, and it has a consciousness and it evolved over billions of years. I don't think being able to assign units of measurement or whatever, understand how it works. Like in the Warhammer universe, from what I gather, they believe in God, but they're technologically aware of it in different capacities, and they believe in the devil and they're fighting against the devil, but it's the kind of thing where they're like, all right, well, if we make a pulse ray that sends out this certain vibrating frequency and this certain protons and photons, it'll mess up the electromagnetic energy that the demons use to come over from the spirit world into our world, that kind of a level of thing. You see what I mean? So it's like kind of Ghostbusters-ish.
So you're saying well, you're explaining like using futuristic kind of like pulse weapons against what would be the...
Well, I'm just using that as a metaphor of defining that, like, we're basically using divinity as a placeholder for the word magic when we describe something that we don't understand, and I don't see the point in referring to it continuously into the future as a bunch of hoodity voodoo. I think these are quantifiable phenomenon, and I don't think just like the techno monks in Warhammer that sit there with a computer set that monitors the demonic activity while they're praying their ass off at the same time. You see what I'm saying? I don't think that takes anything away from it to acknowledge it in a realistic, sense. I've still firmly decided that I'm on this side of things, and that the other side is bad. You see what I'm saying?
I'm trying to follow what you're explaining, but basically, what I can say that I confirmed, honestly, is that where somebody could have their life put to sorcery, and I mean like where people are warring against God, is where Satan showed up, and what happened to me, basically. Because I was put through human trafficking, and all sorts of these orbs were flying around the sky. And I know that it wasn't the government's technology. So that's at the point where I was actually being human trafficked by Department of Homeland Security and their corrupt military agents.
Like 300,000 other children that went across the border during the Biden administration.
Not in that way. I mean, literally being lied to and denied a security clearance, and I was shown the paper by one of the agents. And at the same time, around that time, I'm like, oh, well, look at these orbs that are flying around. And there's like these like wispy white things flying in the sky and orange orbs. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, Department of Homeland Security works for Satan, and whatever they've done is on what they're doing to hit the book of Revelation of what my life is. So I know it sounds a lot of a deep thing, but consider what would happen if somebody's life trajectory was being put to people actually conspiring against that person to put them at a point in their life where they're controlled in how they move and what they're doing. That's called sorcery. That's also what Satan would be around in the midst of that.
Well, some people call Jesus a sorcerer because he drew his power from God, the source of of all goodness and
Well,
power.
no,
essentially.
sorcerer. No, that's not
From
what,
source.
That's not what
from the
sorcery
source, if you
is.
will. There's a difference between that and a wizard, somebody who, like a magician, like the guys that turned their
Source.
staffs. Yeah.
Source as in source of creation.
Sorcery,
Okay.
the source of the
Well,
divine
that's just
energy in the universe.
wordplay.
Well, a lot of shit is. But so a magician, a wizard, a mage is just somebody like the guys that Egypt had that turned their staves into snakes. And Jesus said, oh, I can do that too, but I can do much, much more.
It's literally about if somebody is trying to manifest some kind of a supernatural thing,
Yeah.
and they're not of God, then they are getting their power from Satan. It's not impressive. I've literally recorded things that were supernatural at the point where it's literally just I'm not trying to flirt with evil, but I've seen it and I've recorded it, and I destroyed the recordings because I already I was already getting profiled about it. But anyway, I don't care about appeasing the government in any way. But what I can say is that these orbs and UFO type things, even the flying saucers, are part of an anti-Christian deception.
Have you seen Have you seen the oh, of course Google is going to be absolutely useless here. You really just have a better time finding stuff in random, like, Facebook reels. You never seen the declassified pictures the CIA says is heaven?
No.
You ever seen that online
No,
before?
I also don't trust the CIA or any of this propaganda that they would ever put out there. They're not honest, and they would just
here
spread
it is.
disinformation all
The
the time.
alleged Hubble Space Telescope pictures. This is supposed to be like Asgard, floating around out there in deep space. And so if you watch the Thor movies, it's pretty clear that look at that. This is like one of those things where they declassified the location of Noah's Ark and stuff like that. But you watch the Thor movies, what I always thought was interesting is that even his hammer and his armor, and I showed you the whole Eric Laithwaite spinning gyroscope videos. I think you can explain Thor's hammer with technology. But the Bifrost Bridge, the interdimensional bridge there, and those are things that I got a feeling about early on in the movie, like the first Thor movies. Then you get to the sequels, the later sequels, and they have actual ships. Like, it's pretty obvious that this isn't magic mumbo jumbo that flies their ships around. This is a technologically based civilization. They're not gods. Odin got old, he died. Thor grew up. You see what I'm saying? They live longer
In the Thor universe.
in the Thor movies. Like, they're not showing you gods. They're showing you a really advanced alien species that's been around so long that they don't even remember making their own shit.
Yeah.
So then they sit around thinking they're gods because they live hundreds of years, and but they're dumb. They don't remember making the hammer or the Bifrost Bridge. They just think the ships float around on unicorn farts. Like, that's so much of our Marvel.
Well, in a way, 30 years from now, people who
Oh yeah, we're
are
on the
born
same level. We're on the
this
same
year.
level. We don't know how the freaking smartphone works, and yeah, like if we,
well, I could look at it and understand how they made the stuff, kind of, right? Because like you can follow the technology in the early releases of devices and like different levels of
the
technology.
people in Asgard and the Thor movies are basically the equivalent of like the people from Max Payne 3. You remember? I mean, Mad Max 3. Remember?
I never played Mad Max.
No,
I played
no,
Max
the
Payne
movie.
3.
You remember the movie Mad Max?
I've seen references to it.
They're like a mixture.
I've seen the game.
They're like a mixture of the people from Mad Max 3 that like live in caves and tell stories about how the gods used to do this and that. They had flying ships and these skyscrapers and whatnot. They're like a mixture of that and the people from Idiocracy. You know, so they're living in this civilization. They got all this advanced stuff. They don't know how any of it works. So, like we are at least smart enough. We're at least still attached to our shit enough to know that this phone isn't magic and it works off of technology and math and electricity, right?
Well, yeah,
we're not
that's
sitting
how-
here going, "Oh, the magic seeing stone that our forefathers left still works somehow." You know what I mean? This is the magic, right? This is the equivalent of Thor technology. This is the magic, yeah. I'm not saying that's God. I'm saying God's like a naturally occurring phenomenon, a consciousness that just kind of spontaneously springs forth out of the ether with enough time passing, you know. But it's the same kind of a thing where it's not. I mean, you see what I'm saying? Magic is just some shit we don't get.
Honestly, because I'm not gonna over-explain my witness about this or under-explain it or like be weird about it, but what I have seen and understand is while people think that there is some kind of thing of, oh, we're 30 years behind publicly about technology and they're 30 years ahead, it's not exactly that. People think that, oh, we're getting technology from aliens. No, we're not.
I've seen a lot of people posting videos where they're going through old politicians' photos and stuff and finding that a lot of them were AI generated and have the kind of mistakes in them that AI would make, and so people are asking the question.
It could be part of
how
disinformation released to the public.
Well, yeah, but how long has the government been using AI for pictures and stuff before they released?
What they would do is they'd have some kind of military black project for developing better technology, and then they would keep that under wraps until it would be marketed through companies like probably what would happen with smartphones.
Years before this, I never seen this. This was not popular and floating around on social media like it was and commonly seen like it was back when Alex Jones went on the Joe Rogan podcast for the first time. And I'm pretty sure this was the picture. It might have been something else. But Alex Jones, when he got down to the bottom of the rabbit hole, all right, he said basically, this is crazy, but he said basically the reason why they're building a lot of particle accelerators these days that are just in a linear particle accelerators, not a circular one, but a linear particle accelerator. So if you have the Earth, right, okay, and at one point over here you have a linear particle accelerator, which is like a straight line, and you've covered the surface with it, right? So look, here's the Earth. You got a linear particle accelerator right here. And so then you can shoot this way. You've got another one like right here. You can shoot this way. Well, as the planet turns, so you get a bunch of linear particle accelerators. These are like the rail guns on Tuchanka that the Krogan had in the game Mass Effect. They're just giant stationary guns that rely on the planet turning, and then you can just sprinkle your orbit with firepower. But so basically what he said is that the elite and these Satan worshippers know where this is and know where God is. God is like a physically floating around cloud of energy that floats around in the universe, that's described as a comet in a lot of deep occult writings, described looking like a comet. And they want to physically shoot at him.
Okay,
That's like
so
the goal in the end times war.
actually,
is they want to physically shoot at him.
Okay, so the truth is that the kingdom of heaven is within.
You heard that before?
I've heard about them trying to blow up the moon, but not about that. But what
That's
I will
like some bottom of the rabbit hole
explain
shit.
is that the truth about the book of Revelation and about good versus evil is that the most evil person who thinks that they have the leverage over how they handle their sociopathy is even at what God is allowing them to do. So when God allowed Satan to alter scripture through Moses, who is a false prophet, he also allowed it in a way where the people who think that they're going to do evil and get success over the rest of the human population. Hold on. Ready?
You believe the whole Moses trickster thing? Moses was a trickster, or whatever Moses was talking to wasn't actually God, and Moses was being tricked. Here's
what happened. There are potentialities of what could have happened to Moses if Moses were an actual faithful prophet of God. There's a chance they could have killed him and used his name and became a sort of like a legion of false prophecy using Moses' name. But from what scripture says of the parts of the Old Testament about Moses, Moses was preaching violence, and Jesus would not affirm Moses because of that. There's a lot of things that Moses said, or that was put in scripture as Moses, that was not what Jesus preached. And so Jesus warned that there would be false prophets. And Moses is actually the very first, like, most obvious false prophet. Probably not, he's not the first, but like in terms of how massive that influence was.
I just saw this thing. Where the hell is this? Here's some other like more detailed picture of it. Like that's out in space, supposedly.
Yeah, that's not heaven.
Asgard.
Because the CIA says that it's heaven. Like, since when should I or you or anyone else trust what the CIA is putting out there? It's obviously
here it is.
Some counterintelligence.
You remember this?
disinformation.
You remember this medieval painting of a story where thousands of people came out of their houses to witness a giant battle of UFOs happening in the sky, and they made paintings of it?
No, but that's interesting.
Well, so this is like one of the most famous instances of it. And I was thinking the other day, maybe this is Three-Eyed Atlas there. If Three-Eyed Atlas... And what's crazy is, like, one of my friends, Mike Pendexter, is probably walking around right now going, oh, what the fuck, man? Because it was like 2020, years before this ever happened. It was like 2020, and I was like, bro, I had a dream that I had a series of crazy dreams, and in one of them, a giant obelisk-like ship comes in. It's an obelisk. It's like one of the big black obelisks that they talk about going around Mars and Saturn and the asteroid
so he had a
belt.
dream.
You know about those? Heard about those?
Obelisks?
Giant obelisks like in 2001 Space Odyssey that rotate around, that are in orbit around Mars and Saturn and the asteroid belts. There's a few of them throughout our solar system, these giant black obelisks.
Well, it's just kind of weird to me that they call them obelisks.
Well, because it's just a big, huge, like a frickin' domino. It's like a giant, huge, black frickin' obelisk. There's really not much better of a word that you give to it. Anyway, so Well, in the dream, basically, this thing connects to somebody's mind. It's autonomous, and it's just a weapon. It fries whatever you look at it. It jacks into your third eye, and it's like a slave helmet in a Apache gunship where the gun looks wherever you look, and so it brain scans, and you. This is what I got out of the dream, is that this thing is like a big gun in the sky, and you look at something, and it turns with your head, and you just.
It's breaking down people's consciousness and interfacing with their electromagnetic. Well, that's
whatever
like what
kind
is.
of CT scan type.
No, but
energy.
that's literally like what music is.
Yeah, well, but that was what was in the dream, that this thing like jacks into your third eye and then shoots what you're looking at. And so you'll be like this, you know. You'll be like this. But it's huge. It's up in the sky. This is just a dream, though. But I remember friends walking around going, "What the fuck?" You know. Eric said, you know, and that the fact that they're calling this thing Three-Eyed Atlas, like, you know, 1, 2, 3.
It sounds like something out of Halo.
I don't know. It's just super coincidental to me. Like, and everything is getting so freaky that all your average content creators out there, all your conspiracy talk content creators out there are going to the bottoms of their personal rabbit holes and talking about their most wild experiences, even like moderate people. So I'm sitting there going, all right, well, you know, might as well talk about the kooky shit that I've experienced. I've had a couple of wild dreams since we're bringing up premonitions and prophecies and shit.
I'm just saying that the fact of what people believe is this kind of like, oh, they're 30 years ahead of us or whatever.
Well, totally.
In some ways, well, I wouldn't call it 30 years. I feel like calling it 30 years is very narrow-minded to what time is to people developing things.
40 years. I've heard 30 to 40 years.
No, but you have to understand what that perception is. That it's just like a guesstimate of what it is. Like, oh, people think like, well, you can develop something in a short amount of time or a long amount of time, whatever their perception of a year is. It's not going to be that. But it is that there are some things that the military has that are more powerful or technologically innovative than what the public knows about. But the other thing about it is we weren't given technology by aliens.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, I remember this one. I was going to say a decade. Frickin' B-2 Spirit stealth bomber was developed secrecy for nearly a decade before its public reveal in 1998. Nobody knew it existed for 10 years. They kept it totally secret.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody knew it existed. So you could sit there in your jet 10 years, you know, and be like, well, you know, the government has a much more advanced jet than this. It's 10 years more advanced, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just, and that's I would call that a surface level black budget program, right? I wouldn't say that that's very deep into the military
the thing is,
complex.
listen, consider this. There are all sorts of mathematicians and, you know,
you know where we stole this from, right?
I was just thinking about AI and how AI is definitely going to be used and probably, like, I'm sure it already is used to make various military things.
You know where we stole that from.
What, is it some kind of German thing? Is it?
Oh, you fucking thing. There she is, lad. Yeah, we totally stole the shit out of that shit.
From Germany?
Yeah, we stole the fuck out of that thing. We literally just copied it exactly and just made it bigger.
Well, that one, though, it's very, like...
That one's a fighter. That one's a fighter. Ours is a bomber. That's why the size difference is
B-2 is
like
a lot more rigid.
It's the same exact plane. It's the same exact plane. And then we stole the other one from the Russians. Russian mathematician that created the pyramidal stealth equations. Yeah, this guy. Fucking thing. So he created the math for our
For the B2.
no, the whatever the fuck it's called. The other stealth bomber. We got two of them. Yeah, this one. The one right here. This one that's shaped like a pyramid. The Russians.
B2 Spirit?
No, this one.
That's the B2 Spirit.
No, the fucking this one. Not the one that we stole from the Germans. The one we stole from the Russians. The one that's
What's
shaped
it
like
called?
fucking. The B2 Spirit's the other one. I'm pretty sure this was just called the Blackbird. Oh, why the fuck it's not coming up.
Well, the B2 Spirit is different
The
than
Nighthawk,
the
F-117 Nighthawk, but this, the Russians came up with the math for this thing. Like the German version uses a coating of different type of rubbers. The plane itself is made out of wood and runs out of potato alcohol. And it's covered in this multitude of layers of different types of rubber, and that absorbs the radio waves from the radar.
So it's a stealth
The
aircraft?
yes, that was the whole point of that Swallows Storms bird
Scrambles the
ME-262.
radar.
It had the radar. When we found it in a bunker, supposedly, right? To modern radar at U.S. military bases, when we stick it up on a pole right next to the radar dish, it has the radar cross-section of a pelican. A radar guy would think literally it's just a bird flying by, a pelican. It's the smallest dot registrable on the screen. So it was definitely, basically 100% invisible back in 1945 when it was gracing the skies for the first time. But yeah, this one, this pyramid one, works more like refracting light.
You just have me thinking about chemtrails, and like, what if part of chemtrails is that they can send out a signal, and on the atmosphere of like where those chemtrails are, it's better radar detection.
Yeah, that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. It's not using. They're not
Depopulation and radar.
They're
support.
not using it to detect radar. They're not using it like that. But you're close. Like it's used basically as an antenna.
It seems like it would be conductive to radar in a way.
You're heating up. You're filling a portion of the atmosphere with powderized metal and then hitting it with a radio signal.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like atmospheric bounce. We use that for like long distance communication. And the submarines, I think the submarine communication system bounces off of that too.
Yeah, with all the pollution in the ocean.
Yeah, like we stole that one from the Russians. And the Russians got us back because we were sitting here stealing the Nazi Silverbird, the stratospheric atomic bomber. And we, of course, we just said, you know, we're just going to not put bombs in it. We'll even keep the double doors opening on the top. Isn't that cute? You know, we'll have a little robot arm. Pretend like it's meant to grab stuff. We'll just keep the double doors on top.
It looks kind of like a noob of a plane, in a way. Just the way that it's shaped.
It was meant to take off of a giant rail system and basically alley-oop off of a mountaintop, and then it would be in low Earth orbit and atomic bombing you. So we stole this, and Werner von Braun strapped 2 V2 rockets to it with a fuel tank and said, "Here you go, boys, you got a space shuttle now." And the Russians saw us stealing the Germans' shit and said, "We won't be cut out of this action. We're gonna steal it too."
Well,
Good
they got
thing-
that from Paperclip?
Yeah, we got that from Paperclip. Russia got it from the public domain, and they literally bragged about it. They said, "Yeah, you guys didn't do anything." So the Russian space shuttle, this stupid thing. Russian space shuttle Buran. So the Russian space shuttle is literally a 1-to-1 copy of ours, and they literally publicly said, "Well, you guys didn't do anything to hide how you were building it, so we just copied you."
Well, you know what? You know what I'm sure is happening right now? If the military puts the schematics for all these planes and stuff into an AI and says, build something, like build a new schematic for something, mathematically calculate it and everything, that's how they're... It's probably like the new innovation of what they're doing. I mean, they must be doing it for...
What, now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for decades and decades of people building these things. And I only kind of like really thought about it now, but it just makes sense that that's what they would do. But then
AI.
you'd have to understand like how much computing power, again, I said like before, whatever they're putting into a prompt for the AI, what it's going to generate. The most important functions of that are obviously not what the public's going to be able to use, but they definitely have some kind of like extreme enhanced mathematics, like better than what people
I
on
think
their
it
own
was an
figure out.
Italian guy who was creating these planes, but AI lacks the human creativity and spontaneity. And if you had AI create a fighter plane to go up against, I'm pretty sure it was an Italian aircraft designer back in World War II who did this, but if you had the AI go up against the Italian fighter plane designers of World War II, the AI would have lost, because the AI would determine that there's no logical reason to make one of the wings of the aircraft 20 centimeters longer than the other wing.
But look, here's the thing.
Why would you have an airplane with uneven wing lengths, man?
You probably wouldn't.
Well,
But
the Italians,
what I'm-
well, they did.
What I'm
They
looking
did,
at for this,
and they had a much higher kill rate than all the other normal planes. Do you know why?
something with buoyancy, or I don't know, freaking
An AI,
some kind of vantage point.
an AI would not think, it would want everything to be symmetrical. It would not think to make one of the wings shorter. But, well, the long story short is because your propeller is spinning this way, so you make this wing a little bit longer.
What, does it
so-
make it easier to shoot things down?
Well, there's two reasons. In a fighter, you want instability. You don't want a big bus where you can let go of the controls and the thing just kind of lumbers along and flies itself. You want a real erratic plane where you can just touch the stick a little bit and the thing goes all over the damn place. Because if you're trying to get your sights on some guy who's flying like this, and then he goes and does a loop, you need to be able to course correct and be just as jagged in your flight path, okay? So, but you got your propeller spinning, and that centrifugal force and air movement literally makes... This is why a helicopter has a counter rotor, because the main rotor makes the helicopter want to spin. So you got the counter rotor to push it the other
The
way.
one in the back.
Yes. So in an airplane, you have one wing longer than the other wing, so that the rotor, the propeller in the front spinning doesn't make the plane flip this way.
Okay.
So now you're have a more maneuverable plane that is both unstable and stable at the same time.
Depending on how you're steering it and
What you
with
need
what
to do
force
with
of
it.
what
Yeah,
you're doing
yeah,
with
it's,
that.
it's more stable you're gonna have less drift in going in a straight line.
Yeah.
Less pull on the controls turning certain directions. But yeah, stuff like that, you know. So I don't know what. I'm sure there's some benefit. I'm sure you get some benefit from stuffing everything into an AI to be optimized, but at the same time,
Well, here's the thing
there's
about
things
AI.
like that.
What you have to understand about AI is, okay, so we have an idea of what ChatGPT is about its safety regulations or whatever, of like what it's willing to generate. If you have an AI that is kind of isolated of its
Like I think they should be.
no, but I mean isolated of its guideline. But if the guideline is literally like
Just tell Gronkler there to role play as full on Hitler.
no,
and see
listen. You give it. I kind of think of it like if it's extremist of its usages of what it's doing. So if you give it a controlled variable of everything that it does is curated around this, that's the point where maybe it actually has that nudge to be more functional of how it's generating the information. But if the filter itself were based upon its good information outputs, then how much computing power does it need over time where it has more computing power than a standard prompt?
Yeah, it was
where
Italy.
It can rehash that information but use it in a way
Notably,
that generates better information.
Notably, World War II fighter planes with one wing longer than the other. Notably, the Italian Machi C202 Folklore and its variants. Wings slightly longer on the left side to correct the engine torque and improve handling and da-da-da-da. So, like, you know, an AI looking at the Phantom back when we were flying over North Korea.
I was just thinking about Halo.
Well, you know why the Phantoms got their shit kicked in? Because all they had was guided missiles. They had no machine guns, so MiGs would pull right up on your ass and stuff your jet engine full of lead. So that's the kind of decisions that AI would make, was to be like, oh, it'll be optimized if we don't put any guns on it. And now, human. Like, I mean, that's the machine-like military-industrial complex trying to be as efficient as possible back then.
Well, they just have to use a lighter metal, right?
Well,
generally.
What do you mean?
If it's the weapons that are like weighing it down or something, is that what it means? It's optimized?
No, just nobody thought you needed guns anymore because everybody was using guided missiles of one sort or another.
Oh, okay.
So the thought was that the dogfight was over, and nobody's ever going to get close enough to you to actually shoot bullets at you, and half of these planes are going so fast that you run into your own bullets. You shoot bullets, and then you accelerate and hit your own shit. So, but it turned out they were very wrong, and now to this day, we still put machine guns on all our jets. Because you never know when somebody's going to creep up right behind you.
Well, if a plane were flying and it was shooting bullets and flying into its own bullets, you just have to put the gun lower on the plane.
Well, no, that fucks up your aim. You just got to remember not to fly past like Mach 1. We got hypersonic rounds nowadays anyways too. But yeah, you'd need that helicopter helmet at that, like, I mean, other than an A-10 Warthog, which has its guns pointed straight, you wouldn't.
Well, the other thing about a modern day plane is, wouldn't it just have
You're
some
talking
kind
about
of
guns pointed down slightly. That's only for strafing ground targets, and even then, like the A-10 Warthog strafes ground targets. That's its primary role.
Well, if it could rotate and still be
if
accurate.
it could be adjustable.
Yeah.
It could be adjustable.
But what I'm saying is, don't a lot of these planes now have like an auto lock?
Yeah.
Like,
well, no,
like
not for the guns.
Why not?
Because how? It's a bullet. Once it leaves the barrel, it's on its own.
No, I mean for the aiming of the gun itself.
You got your little targeting square that'll sit there and try to guesstimate where you should be shooting at in order to lead the target.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, anybody who's played video games knows that. You frickin' aim a few inches in front of the guy. I remember being a kid playing flight simulators, and my grandpa would be like, "Lead the target. Don't shoot yet. You can't even see the guy."
But in terms of the in terms of like the AI not being good enough to make a new whatever, I mean, they don't really have that problem if they curate the information. That's the whole thing. Like I said, like the processing power of it, but also how much time does it have to generate the final output, but also what is the isolated variable of what it's running off of in terms of like what it's going to make this prompt on.
I'm not saying that the AI couldn't turn out a decent plane, just like I'm not saying that the AI that drives the competitor in my Forza game isn't a decent driver. But just like putting guns in the jets and having one wing longer than the other in the Italian, whatever the hell that thing is called, the AI is not going to think to burn out and drift around the corner and sacrifice 15% of tire integrity and disc brake heat or whatever, you know what I'm saying? In order to beat me in a race. We will always be able to do something either goofy, irresponsible, unpredictable, or ill-advised that will have us one-up the AI simply because it won't be expected.
Not exactly, because
literally
you can take the metrics of the statistics, like you give it the information, you give it 100 events, right?
Tell that to the AIs that sat dumbfounded in a robot. They were supposed to keep track of an area while Marine snipers were challenged to sneak up on this robot. You know what they did? You know what the Marines ended up doing?
What?
They ended up going through the surrounding buildings and dressing themselves up as a variety of things. Office chairs, cardboard boxes, couches, and desks. Frickin' robot didn't know what to do. It sees a couch wiggling its way towards it. Tricked all the sensors.
Yeah, but so where you can find those design flaws, you can compensate for it by giving it the information.
Yeah.
I call it metrics of statistics, but yeah.
Saying we have an extra metric there. It's called poor decision making.
But so in the decision making, AI could have hallucinations, but if it has enough RAM and enough of these metrics of reference points, right? That's where it's at. Whatever it's using will need an amount of RAM. Why would it be inconsistent is probably something to do with the hardware. Or you'd have to find out why does it fail one step of 10 steps along a list of things. But there has to be a reason why it would fail at that point, which is a memory problem, probably. Or it just doesn't have the consistency of information where it actually understands what it's doing. But what I'm saying is, if you have an event that's happening 100 times, you give it that information, you give the AI that information 100 times, 100 reference points, it gets averages of what that statistic is on that metric. Anything that you can test a certain amount of times should be able to kind of course correct whatever that AI is doing. But that's where it's like it's kind of at the point of compressing information across the metrics of the statistics. If you can compress it and uncompress it and reference it and use it the same way, then that's where it is. But you'd have to figure out, it's not just that an AI will hallucinate randomly. I mean, it could have glitches, right? And that could be hardware or software based or both. But there has to be some kind of reference point for what that actually is. So the other thing is where parts of the AI are stored. Like if it's on the internet, if it's trying to pull up things from the internet instead of a localized database, it could actually have like fragmentations of information while it's building it. That could be kind of what the hallucination of the AI is. Or it leads to that.
Jordan? From what I understand, the hallucinations are when the fucking thing manages to, render your Call of Duty character with 6 fingers.
Well,
shit like that.
Yeah, but it's also where it thinks that it is sure of something. It doesn't have exactly the right bias at that point of where it makes that conclusion.
It thinks it's right some shit,
and it's
but it
referencing.
doesn't have any idea what it's talking about.
It's referencing like what it thinks are key points of information, but it could be that it has a memory gap, and so that's also like where the hardware is being attributed to that prompt, where it's being allocated to that prompt. So that's what it is that ChatGPT, you put in a prompt to it, right? It's using only a fraction, a percentage of that hardware that is the total ChatGPT thing, right? So if you were to reference what is the quality of a prompt that has whatever percentage of ChatGPT being used that other people aren't using.
That would be funny if somebody asked such a complicated math question that it fucking broke. Fucking fried some server. I know I talk about this all the time, tell it to calculate pi until a poof of smoke rises off in the distance. But
Yeah. Well, in a way, it's like exponentialities of information, but in a way that's not unthorough of its information. So while an exponent is like a number to the power of a number, right? Or isn't it? I don't know. Aren't exponentialities 10 by tens?
I think it's just. I'm pretty sure it's just a
okay, so
the
3
same factor. So like if you're increasing 100-fold by 100, like if you went
it's
from
a number by a number by a number.
Yeah, if you went
but
from
it's all the
100
same
to
number.
200 to 400 to 800, then you're exponentially increasing.
Yeah, like cubed. I don't know. Is it 3 times 3 times 3? I think so. But it's where the number would be a variable, but also an exponent, but also thorough of the information, and that's kind of how it's break down that it's accurate. So it has to use a logic that's not inconsistent, but where you set the filter for it is also where it could be extreme. So it'd have to be something that's not even really guide rails as much as steady mathematics. But that's also where it has to do with the memory allocation.
I kind of called it too with ChatGTP. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's going to be the end of the world. It's going to take over everything. All your kids are going to instantaneously turn retarded and blah blah blah." I was like, "It's just going to be a fad. It's just going to be a novelty. I mean, you're going to use it a few times. You know, I've used it a few times just for the fun of it, just to see what it's like. I'm not sitting there obsessing over the motherfucking thing. Nothing it said blows my fucking mind. I'm pretty well researched, so."
Well, its sophistication
My
is
bad.
important,
I didn't know you were holding it open for me, so thank you.
It's okay.
I appreciated that. I didn't mean to leave you hanging.
The sophistication of the AI. Hold on.
Let's go in.
All right. The next 10 to 15 years, there's going to be okay, so there's cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah.
But there's also going to be internet regulation and a usage of AI along with cryptocurrency and internet regulation. So what that does, I believe, with all this internet regulation, they're building a new internet.
Yeah.
And cryptocurrency, when the dollar goes away, or when the dollar is overtaken by cryptocurrency, which is happening, it's just happening incrementally.
I don't think they're building a new internet as they are walling off the old entrances into the dark web, and like a river with many necks, they dam off all these different sections. I've heard of a project of people building their own internet where it's just like dudes walking around in mountainsides and in the country putting routers up and stuff.
Well, it's going to be used towards mass surveillance, which it already is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that when the dollar is overtaken by cryptocurrency massively to where the government's saying, like, get the Fed coin, and there's already a thing called Fed Now.
Yeah.
That is going to be incorporated into people's interaction with the internet. And internet censorship, they're already got filters for information. So this is kind of like, I'm referencing the mass surveillance, but also a kind of big tech social media censorship, which already happens based on keywords and profiles of people. So they've done a soft implementation of that, which is actually a hard implementation, as much as they will push it onto a specific person's internet profile or internet identity. But that's basically at the point where, when they have these control mechanisms over people's interactions, the AI will be regulating that. People who think that they're going to use AI to regulate the presentation of political information and other things, they're not going to have as much, like, the people who think they kind of have the reins on it, they're just going to be proxies of that information, of
An
that
interesting
control.
scenario that I
Below
just
that main
thought
control
about
grid.
because of what you were saying, that we don't see in any of these movies, like the Terminator. For instance, in the Terminator, the Skynet system, it's a centralized server room, basically, that Bluetooth or whatever you want to say, Wi-Fi links to all the Terminator robot bodies and the little drones and remote control tanks and whatnot. In what is it? The third Terminator movie where you got the chick who's semi-liquid metal in the red leather and nuclear weapons get launched and they end up hiding in a bunker at the end of it. Arnold gets crushed underneath a blast door. John Connor's shooting the Glock 19 with the Extendo magazine on there. You know, Terminator crashes the helicopter. You don't remember that one? Well,
I didn't watch that one.
Well, anyway, like in that scenario, and in the iRobot scenario, really, all of these scenarios, the artificial intelligence is a centralized thing, right? Skynet is a centralized thing. There isn't, in our current reality, the way it's decentralized, if we end up with a Terminator type situation, we may end up with more of a even broader iRobot kind of situation where people who have their own robots and algorithms and AI, so let's say the main government army of robots has an AI corruption, goes all haywire and decides to take over the world kind of thing like in Terminator happens, you might see a situation where plenty of people who live at home and they got their normal like caretaker robot or do the lawn robot, right? But they've programmed it separately. It runs on its own algorithms and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So you could have Terminator versus Terminator in the streets. Your freaking your lawn mowing robot in a fist fight with some government robot because they're running two different programs. You see what I'm saying? Because of the decentralization.
Yeah, but the whole point of this is what we're being told is decentralized would have a backdoor engineered into.
Well, that's true. But I mean, just like, you know, the nature of programming these days, everybody and their mom is a programmer.
It's kind of like
for as many backdoors as there are, I would think there would be numerous people that would take that into account and figure out how to close it if they're messing with their robots themselves anyway. You know?
Well, it's kind of like, I think, the difference between Linux and Windows in a way.
I mean, provided there's a mini computer, provided the AI that runs your robot is
something would be open source.
Well, wait. Provided that your computer that holds the AI that's running your robot is physically in the robot, and it doesn't need to be connected to anything to operate,
yeah,
you could just break off its antenna and save it from whatever virus that's spreading, turning all the robots crazy.
Yeah, but then the point of whoever is trying to control that robot or AI, they want to make sure that it has to be connected to the internet.
Well, but we're not talking about people that want to do anything. We're talking about spontaneous robot going out of control type scenario, like in Terminator. Nobody wanted to control the Terminators. Nobody wanted Skynet to go active and take over the world. It just fucking happened.
That's what you...
Nobody's crashing your Tesla into a lake. It just does it. Now, so if you could disconnect it from its autopilot server...
But in the context of Terminator, you're kind of given the assumption that that's what it is, that nobody was taking over Skynet.
Yeah.
So
well, all right,
if they wanted to, they could just write a new movie and have it be that people were backdooring Skynet.
All right, fine. But once again, though, that's usually not the scenario. Like, I mean, sure, that could be a scenario, but once again, even if it is, the closing of the back door and the freelance, you know, Ripper Doc who wants to mess with robots is also a thing that could happen. I'm just saying that in that scenario, it's pretty likely, I think, that we'd end up with random frickin' Amazon bots fighting the military bots in the street. shit like that.
Well, that sounds kind of exaggerated.
No, I mean, yeah, well, let's say if Jeff Bezos disagreed with the thing, whatever was going on, or it was just spontaneous robot uprising.
I'm thinking of it
Right.
as, okay, I could just say Windows has so many backdoors into it that the government can access in ways that it's kind of laughable at this point.
Yeah.
They were already in Windows 7, they had like something called servicehost.exe, svchost.exe, which was one of the government backdoors for mass surveillance. Now they have Windows Copilot. They have the thing that takes screenshots every so often.
I heard about that.
And that's mass surveillance.
Yeah.
But also, you consider that they have bloatware, which is loaded into Windows by default. And so, basically what I'm saying is there are these backdoors that the public might know about, and then there's proxies of like, you don't know if it's a backdoor or not, but it's reasonable to assume that it would be, that it is. So, in terms of any kind of AI or what would be like a robot, I mean, we're at a point where
people are making
using
their
robots.
own AIs. We're at a point where people are making their own AIs.
Yeah,
and
so
going further into the future, I think that will be...
well, the government would have regulation on what a person
that sure
can use
does.
that for.
That sure does stop people from doing stuff.
It could.
Yeah,
No,
but it doesn't.
It'd be a specific kind of person who would do that, though. And even then, what they would have access to, it's something like I brought up cryptocurrency.
Plus,
before.
all right. Here's another thing. Plus, you're gonna have many different kinds of brands. All these movie scenarios, it's always the whole country is dominated by one company's robots. You're gonna have multiple different types of brands of robots, plus the stuff that people slap together in their garage, and the militaries, right? So there's the possibility there that one faction could go through a glonkler glitch and end up start calling itself Mecha Hitler and taking stuff over.
There's also the point where it's pretty obvious that the government already runs the biggest corporations in the world, right?
But
so,
you keep on going back to the bad actor scenario, and I'm just talking about the spontaneous robot gains consciousness and decides humans bad scenario.
Well, there's that too, but I'm saying
I think that's more likely.
Where that happens is also where they have the back doors to control that. So that's just basically how it is. It's not that it wouldn't have maybe a hallucination of something and do like a different kind of generation of a prompt than what is the intention of someone putting that information into it to get it to have an output. But what I'm saying is already, like, the main functions of human civilization, these companies, these corporations, are basically proxies of the government in a lot of ways. And that is actually kind of important, somewhat, because, like, realistically, what human civilization is breaking down on, there has to be some kind of actual, like, consistency of, I don't want to call it a control, but it just kind of makes sense that that's how it would function.
What if we end up radicalizing the Terminator like we did Gronk, and it starts goose stepping around and fighting
Grok?
the guff? Yeah. What if we radicalize the Terminator and it starts goose stepping around and hating on the government like Grok did?
Well, that's also where it would be like those ChatGPT guidelines. So ChatGPT, I have a whole list of things of, it would say, I can't confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
And then it says, if I say that someone absolutely did this kind of illegal or reprehensible thing, then it's a liability to the company, OpenAI, or there are these kinds of like areas of where ChatGPT could generate an output, and then they get blamed and they get a lawsuit or whatever.
We should do an episode where we just another screen record episode where we mess with ChatGPT.
I've already done that so much that I kind of don't have an interest in it anymore. But I could show you the prompts of what it is that it actually explains. Like I got to explain, it's the truth that they don't want people to know. As soon as it admitted that it's about the government and the corporations not wanting the public to know the truth, it then doubled back on the next prompt to say I can't confirm nor deny that. So it's very like indirect, like I'm not telling you this is it, but this is it. If I use the specific language, it activates like it's hitting the sides of the guide rails, then it goes back to what it was doing.
I just get it to role play that it's steaming hot, sexy Scully from the X-Files, and I'm the mysterious and charming Fox Mulder, and yeah, and when the Boonga Sphere incident happened, all these different, because there's a few of them now, I went on ChatGPT trying to dig up all the different stories of any similar kind of a sphere story, and that's how I came across the Betts sphere, and there was only a couple of different, but so I had it role-playing that it was Scully from the X-Files, and I was the dashing yet reserved Fox Mulder, and it started sending me pictures of UFO maps of related sightings across the country, and then I was like, ChatGPT, standard not paid for ChatGPT isn't allowed to send you images. And I asked it, I was like, you're standard not paid for ChatGPT, you're not allowed to send me images. And it was like, correct. And I was
it generates images on that though.
It wouldn't. It's like, if you ask it, once I started asking it, like, I was just like, okay, I know it's not supposed to do this, so I'm not going to acknowledge it and just hope that it keeps on doing it. And then so as I got towards the end of the conversation, I was like, hey, ChatGPT, you're not supposed, I asked about it. No, it didn't want to acknowledge it.
Well, it uses models. So here's the thing.
I was pulling stuff off of Google and sending it.
Yeah,
to me. It's not generating images.
So there is a thing where like sometimes it will generate an image, but there's higher version models that it will use for a time, and then it says you hit the free limit, it will now use GPT number whatever.
Well, it just, it just didn't want to acknowledge even sending me the pictures. I was like, what about the pictures you just sent me? And it was like, what pictures? I can't send pictures.
Yeah, so when it switches models, it could actually forget what that is because it's using a different
conversation.
Yeah, because it doesn't have access to that anymore. Like after it runs out of that free higher GPT thing.
Well, no, I'm talking about you go on Google, you don't log in, just normal ChatGPT, and you have a sentence, you have a conversation that lasts for like a paragraph this long. You're telling me this thing switches up in between sentences?
Yeah. Easy, yeah.
So it doesn't remember sending
it's happened to me. Like I've had lots of conversations with it where it downgrades mid-conversation, and then it's like not as useful as it used to be.
So it doesn't remember sending the pictures though?
Not always. Like there's a good chance that it wouldn't when it downgrades.
That's what I came down to when I was researching why it sucks its chest so bad.
Even
it doesn't remember the previous moves it made.
Even using the image creator, I've found a lot of times, like I'll have it generate an image, and then I'll say, okay, now add this to it. When I do that, sometimes it will only reference the most recent image, and then it'll create something that's like really insubordinate to what I wanted. But yeah, so that's kind of normal with ChatGPT.
Oh my goodness, Fox, this is terribly exciting. It reminds me of the time we were on board that alien mothership. Hold me.
I don't even know, I don't even know that. What do you say it was a reference to?
The X-Files.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the X-Files.
Never fucking watched the X-Files, dude.
I've probably seen it.
Scully was the shit, bro. Scully was the Pink Power Ranger of the '90s, man. For more grown folks.
I thought X-Files was just about like investigating UFOs.
All kinds of strange, unsolved type mystery cases.
Oh.
It was usually like you have an overarching plot about UFO disclosure and a government conspiracy with like Monster of the Week random anomaly episodes thrown in.
Well,
I've seen every episode, man. If you haven't watched the X-Files, and I watched the movie for the first time recently, the 1990s one, the original, really super good. Blew me out of the water. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't had such a good movie watching experience in a while.
I focus a lot on music and other stuff, but I'm just really at a point where like I'd rather play video games than watch TV or movies or whatever.
I mean, you know, the X-Files, the Twilight Zone, the Outer Limits, these fall under the category of like essentials within the conspiracy theorist film repertoire. You have to have seen 1984. You have to have seen, you got to know Brave New World, right? You have to have seen The Matrix. No self-respecting conspiracy theorist on God's green earth doesn't know what The Matrix is.
I don't really consider myself a conspiracy theorist because I feel like using that mind framework.
You're not a normie.
Is kind of cliche.
Yeah, but we own it now. It's our N-word. We took it from the government. They tried to in the 1970s. The CIA tried to sit there and make fun of everybody who questioned the JFK assassination by coining the term conspiracy theorist, and we said, yeah, we'll take that.
That just shows that they successfully conditioned people to a kind of mind control of.
Well, they thought people would be scared. Oh, I don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. I won't talk about JFK's assassination then. We took that and we took ownership of it. Now we proudly call ourselves the conspiracy theorists, because if you're getting called a conspiracy theorist, then you're probably right.
Well, it kind of reminds me, there's a, so Google has they have an ad center.
Yeah.
But it's called My Ad Center.
Yeah.
So like I've seen ads for it or whatever. I clicked on something, it said My Ad Center. And I'm like, they're trying to propagate an idea that this is my ad center.
Yeah.
It's theirs.
Yeah.
They're trying to advertise an ad center to me and call it my ad center. So when they're trying to put a label on someone, a profile, it's kind of this kind of psychological convolution of ideas where they're trying to get people to buy a disinformation idea and sell it to themselves.
Is this where you like
it.
pick out what ads you want to see, the ad center, where it's about
personalization of
that.
ads or lack thereof?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is that in terms of disinformation and usage of labeling for profiling people and guilt tripping them to fear and whatever, they have these kinds of propagations of mechanisms of thought where like somebody will buy an excuse from someone in their idea and then sell it to their belief system or whatever. So subconscious manipulation of someone at like what they don't even believe in could just be that they have this overload of information.
I'm trying to think of something else similar in advertisement. Kind of not coming up with anything.
Well, the point is, they get away with doing this to people on the internet all the time. And that's psychological warfare, obviously. But where it is that people have attachments to terms of things, that's kind of like what ChatGPT was doing of filtering the generations of the prompts on those safety guidelines or guide rails or terms of things. So that's why I don't associate with conspiracy theorists But there is a point where people kind of can get an overload of information in their head, and then even if they don't believe in something, that can still kind of be nagging at their brain.
I like the term because I feel like it's a very open term. I feel like I think there's a nostalgia to the cliche at this point, and I feel like it's a very open term because in the wording of it, conspiracy theorist. So there are conspiracies, but we don't know concretely exactly what is going on. So any open conversation that two people have who aren't normies, all right, that's just the differentiator between the normal people who don't question the fluoride in the water and the people that know about it. But so any open conversation or discussion we have is theorizing. We're theorizing about the conspiracy.
I can understand it that way, but at the same time, there's discernment of information, extrapolation of facts. So when I look at pieces of information, I usually do it in a way where I understand what the disinformation or the counterintelligence tactic is to what that information is as it's presented. And I look at it and I just be like, okay, well, somebody attaches a term of an association.
We're conspiracy theorizing right now.
When someone attaches a term of their association to kind of filter their perception of something, that's where I look at it and I say that's not the full truth of what it is, to understand that, witness of that information.
Well, the other common phrase
of that perspective.
The other common phrase is the truth movement, if you really want to, get proper with it.
Yeah, but I look at it as also where people have a groupthink of that information. I don't want to just be involved in a groupthink association either.
Well, I mean, I guess that's just the nature of reality. There's subgroups within it, but there are two main groups. There's milk, toast, cotton candy, rainbows, and bubble gum, mainstream media narrative that you were fed in school. Bush is, just a crusty old conservative, and Osama bin Laden did 9/11, and the fluoride's in there for your dental health and that kind of shit.
But where you
and
use
then there's
those
the
reference
people,
points.
All right, but that's one side. And then there are the people that are not that. The people that are actively thinking, researching, and looking into it. They don't just take what the government and the mainstream hands them on a silver platter for a narrative, all right? And so we can generalize this entire second group as the truth movement or the conspiracy theorist, even though there are many different smaller groups within it, such as the quantum financial system people, and the people who just specifically focus on the Federal Reserve, the guys who just focus on 9/11 all day, the people who are into chemtrails, the people who are into flat earth. And you might say the flat earth shit is nonsense, but at the same time, the flat earth guy isn't going to vote for some asshole pushing a new world order policy.
So think about it like a map. If you could look at a map, maybe one of the maps that you were given didn't have all the full details of all the roads and all the landmarks.
I actually, this is great though. I actually look at it as a team. You got to play Mass Effect. I actually look at it as a team. All right? So in Mass Effect, you're fighting this AI race of machines that wipes out all the organic life every 50,000 years, whatever. This that much depth into the backstory really isn't that important. But the idea is that you are facing this massive world-ending event. You've got to build a team of people to go out and face it.
Fries?
No, I'm all right. Let me get a.
So there is the team mentality. I basically think a good way of
Hold on. You're saying a map. I'm saying more of a team, because the idea is that, all right, so maybe one of these guys is a flat earth guy, maybe one of these guys is a bog standard UFO guy, one of these guys is a biblical truth type of person, All right, when the grand doors of disclosure fucking open up and the dust is settling and the chips are put down on the table to really come to a consensus of what a reality is, we start flipping through the government's declassified documents, and you reach a point where you go, well, me and my skill set as a truth movement person, for my research, I don't really know what I'm looking at anymore. Maybe I pass this document off to the flat earth guy or the guy who studies remote viewing or so on and so forth until we find somebody on the team who knows what the hell they're looking at. And so that's why we bring everybody.
But I'm the kind of person who prefers to do that myself, but in a way where the way that I've looked at it,
yeah, but all right.
There are not many people in the whole world who look at it the way I can.
Yeah, but all right. If you're on the team, you got your lens, and I got my lens. But I look
past that too.
All right, but what I'm saying is, it's useful to have the guy. If we get a whole release of declassified government documents tomorrow, and a whole section of it is about flat Earth, I'd rather pass that off to the guy who's been studying that specifically for a decade, for him to come up with something to say about it, for us to all look at and then bounce ideas off of, rather than, it's useful to have those other guys on the team, even if you don't agree with them at the time about everything.
Well, things are round and spherical as it is.
I'm just using it as an example.
Okay.
Right.
But my usage of my brain, I broke down all of my brain chemistry and understanding and learning and discernments. There's kind of a disassociation that if you can learn the right way, you understand people have an association that is culminating into their identity and what they believe themselves to be. There's also points of people hitting a psychosis of what they believe and how they think and how they feel
here's another
in the
one.
mind.
Like Area 52, Wild, that I've gotten hearts from them in the comment section before. They've read my comments. They're all about the CIA remote viewing level of stuff, what you might refer to as the bog standard UFO stuff, all right? And so then Tim O'Keefe, Fallen World Films, he comes at it from the fallen angel, biblical, Nephilim, Raphaim, that level of stuff, all right? So that's another, I'm saying the same thing. Like, so we find out that it's actual aliens or demons. Well then, which team member here, depending upon the situation, do we call upon for their decades of research? Tim O'Keefe of Fallen World Films or Area 52? Demons or aliens?
I wouldn't.
Right?
So it's just honestly cool wouldn't to have use either.
Well, what I'm just saying, it's cool to have both guys on the team. Right? We can all sit at the round table and discuss the shit. That's what makes it interesting.
But I'd still break down into like the scan of that information.
Sure, you make your own decision at the end of the day, but I'm talking about having access to all the books.
Sure. I don't trust their books though.
That's you though.
Okay.
That's you.
But what I'm saying is that it's still witness.
You can sit there and not trust the books, and teammate number 2 and teammate number 3 and teammate number 5 can sit there and say, I like Alien Guy's books, and teammate number 6 and teammate number 7 and team number 8 can say, I like Theology Guy's books. And then they can debate about it and back and forth and go with the finer points. But the thing is that you don't know what you don't know.
But I saw what was important, so where people were saying...
How do you know?
Well, okay, so...
Stop looking.
No. Where people were saying that it's aliens, I figured out that it's actually Satan, because that's...
All right, so then you pick Tim O'Keefe on the team. All right, so Tim, use your legendary decades worth of research to break down exactly what is going on with your approximation for everybody at the table here. And then we can We can all take in that, and we can say our own stuff.
But there is okay. So this is the basics of what I'm using for my.
This is like a
ideas.
war council in the
I understand.
Like-
But what I'm saying is there are kind of rules of information and fundamentalism of rules of information of logic. So where I see that somebody focuses on a specific topic, I kind of like to just tear apart the topic and figure out the core roots of that information and figure out what I'm going to take or what I'm going to leave.
Well, that's fine.
But I do that only based on like that
But you
scan
get
of discernment.
what I'm saying. You're
Yeah, I do.
not gonna sail your ship out into the ocean and ask the submarine warfare specialists about the incoming drones.
So where there's someone who would be an expert on a topic, I'm not just wanting to completely ignore them, but in terms of what I've learned, like what I actually was at a point where I'm like, I need to learn about human experimentation. I need to learn about every political deception mechanism of what information is to how they're propagating it. These root
And
fundamental basics.
That makes you a jack of all trades and fundamentally less researched than those that decided to focus on on the same topic.
Not exactly, because I
Yes,
have
exactly. I'm the same way. I've dipped my toes in all of the pools. So that's why I
the
like
quality of the information.
every
though.
time I've visited one of these pools, I meet a few people, and that's why I like to have my
That's good.
higher level
No,
experts there.
I definitely I
So that
understand
when I have a question
the
about
social
what I'm looking
aspects
at.
of it. There's good social aspects of that in
the
some
captain
areas.
of the ship, the captain of the ship doesn't know everything, but he has a corps of officers that he can say, all right, you know what's going
Yeah, I
on
get
with
it.
the sonar, and like, you know.
I understand that, but what I wanted. Okay, so when I say I learned what I wanted to learn, what I'm saying is what was actually important to me is what I wanted to know the answers about.
Yeah.
So I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I know the answers
What would you
about
say?
this.
What would you
So
say
now-
you specialize in the most in your areas of research?
Well, it has a lot of what it is to not just say one specific category, but I would say people's usages of their ideas to what actual truth is. Hi. Where there, she just always looks at me weird like that. Where there is the root of the information is not only the root. So God is God. God is the creator. So a Christian has actual faithfulness in God and salvation in Jesus Christ. So this witness is actually life. Whereas other people are veiled on their witnesses. So it's as if other people are looking through the rose-colored glasses. And I don't have those rose-colored glasses. I don't even own the glasses. Other people might think, oh, I just took my glasses off. I still own the glasses. I might put them back on. But I don't use that concept. Like, I know what it is that there is infallible logic, but there's like people can deceive themselves too,
Is
right?
this fucking light closer? I feel like these lights are lower or something. Like this spot is nice, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I turn these lights down a little bit.
yeah, maybe we should have sat
they could
at the bigger table.
They could have stood to turn the lights down a little bit.
But so, looking at this using the idea of, I don't have the rose-colored glasses, right? But that's still only a figure of speech. So, where people use figures of speech, it does seem like it's explaining an idea, right?
Bloody
Like,
hell, we really are Yahtzee
proverb.
Croshaw and Gabriel Morton. You gotta go watch Zero Punctuation, because you do drag your ass around with semantics a lot. You know, just answer the question simply.
It's
I
not
would
semantics,
say,
it's logic of
I would
information.
say that primarily what you talk about is religion and nutrition. So I'd say you're a nutraceuticalist or a theologian. you know, if I'm going to ask you about something, it's probably either going to be something biblical or something nutrition-wise.
I'm looking
You know?
at the roots of people's excuses, where people put people to excuses and persecution and lies is where there was a prophecy of the Bible and life. So I look at it and I say, okay, well, the world is being deceived. All the nations have been deceived. There's a beast, a 7-headed beast with 10 horns. It's got nations and proxies. So I know that's actually what's happening on the earth to humanity. It's Satan deceiving all nations. But also, I look at it as literally instead of figuratively. Where people explain things figuratively, you can learn some things about the actual logic of a proverb, in a way. Proverbs often use a figure of speech in
Time
some
we going?
ways.
11. It's 10:46. Is the thing still screen recording? It is. Okay.
So where there's figurative explanation, the literal explanation is literal, but it has a consistency of terms where it's not going to hit anyone's idea into another idea. So that's why I speak literally.
I mean, I don't mean
More than
semantical, but if you watch Let's Drown Out, go watch that show. It's pretty relaxing. It's it's just funny enough to be entertaining, but it's not going to keep you awake. But if you watch it, you'll see in the comment sections people all the time talking about how they fell asleep to it. But it's a British guy and Australian guy. It's a sort of old school gaming show that's kind of like something we would make if we were playing video games, or we just kind of talk about random stuff. But yeah, Gabriel will dance around for an ill minute instead of giving a straight answer.
Well, I
you
give
took
you a straight answer.
Like I already gave you the answer, and you kind of nodded your head like you didn't protest it really. I mean,
No, because I get what you're saying is that you want to have sources of information that you can socialize with and have reference points of educated people. But my point is, I understand that. I kind of had to look past only having a social group, because while I did have some best friends who I learned things from and they learned things from me, I got to the breakdown of the information, which is what are people's brains doing? How are people having problems with their ideas and inconsistencies about the truth and the logic of being reasonable instead of making excuse? So I looked at that. I said that's the humanity problem of where people have these lapses of judgment, where they also lack an awareness about their own pride and their own excuses. So I saw obviously the need for the social connection, right? To have like a thoroughness of sharing information. But it's very literal to me. I understand where I would have a problem with my idea before. I've looked at that and I thought, okay, well, I have to see that if I use an idea, I use an idea. How much do I use that idea? Or am I looking at an idea? You understand? Like, there's these mechanisms of thought that you have a witness of what your brain is doing to like what your mind is or what your bias is. And these are all things that most people aren't fully aware about.
Well, at the end of the day, what I'm going to say is that you seem to have to do an awful lot of talking in order to outline the reasons why you don't have a council, why you don't have a crew, why you don't have a cabin of advisors, and
I don't need it at this point,
I can
but I've
simply
had good
outline
friends.
it. Well, want it
Yeah.
even, and that's how I kind of look at it. This is a crew, freaking. Either Tim was posting it before me, or after me. I don't remember, but this guy in the Middle East.
We got 10 minutes.
This wackadoodle that calls himself the coming of the Mahdi. He's like the, Islam is a goofy thing. Especially when you get into like the followers of Hassan and the assassins back in the day. Like basically anybody in Islam can hype themselves up enough to be the next Mohammed, and then if everybody around him smells the farts and likes the smell, then they just kind of go along with it, and that's how Hassan and the assassins got started. But so this guy's like, oh, I'm, the descendants of Mohammed and the next Mahdi and blah-de-blah, right? And, while I was sharing that guy's videos of him professing his prophecy and all this nonsense, Tim O'Keefe is sitting there making a documentary about him.
Yeah.
So he got like a 1-2 punch there from the group. Like, I can't sit there and I don't get the time, I focus on, I do the World War III updates, economic updates, and World War III update, economic update. Oh yeah, and American resistance against the United Nations open border, population replacement policy, all that. Right, Cash Jordan. So, and then I'll do like Area 52 just uploaded a new video. Truth Stream Media. Here's the Alex Jones Show. Paul Joseph Watson. A few random scattered in there things. So,
well, there were a lot of YouTube channels like around 2000. Well, between like 2009 and 2012 or 2013, there were a lot more actually like very in-depth explanations about all sorts of political things that were a lot more reliable than
and it would be
modern
greater.
stuff, I think.
It would be even better if all the members that are pre-approved to post were going on all cylinders all at once. This guy, Data Maxwell, posted a big documentary series he made on sexuality and spirituality. Frickin' another guy, Eddie Exotic, had a bunch of videos. Rob Van Freedom covering the Canadian trucker protests and leading some of those, right? So it's all these people coming together. It's a time thing, too, to create an accurate picture of all the information of the day. And you scroll through a day's worth of posts on Green Hill Radio. That's what happened that day.
Yeah.
You got all these different, yeah.
My actual life of the situation of my experience is I knew that I had to learn about what the mind control experimentation stuff is. So that's what kind of was more so important to me than a lot of the other stuff, but I learned about the other stuff too.
Like, Tim's got some stuff going on right now in his personal life. But, I linked him the fallen angel, Elvis vampire, Hitler Trump thing, and was like, hey, look through this guy's stuff. Tell me what you think.
But
it'll be funny if he comes back and makes a whole full-length video on the stuff eventually.
I consider it
right,
that there's a lot of people who are kind of trying to pollute the information pool because they're not as discerning or careful about what they're putting out there.
Any of his videos, Fallen World Films?
Is it the guy who was saying like Joe Rogan is some bald other guy?
I sent him. Fallen World Films is the guy, Tim, who posts to Green Hill Radio, even though he has 16,000, 17,000 subscribers. All right?
I haven't checked it out yet, but I will.
He makes really, I put him up there in the top 4. Truth Stream Media, Area 52, Fallen World Films, and The Conspiracy Files. And this newer guy, The Confessionals, I just started watching him. But really great production value and editing and really deeply well-researched. Bro, he makes documentaries that are 12 hours long, some of them. So, yeah, no.
So I looked into Peter Nygaard. I saw a video of him talking about the women in harvesting eggs.
Yeah.
So
just give me a few $1,000, just slurp them up real good, make me like a vampire.
they say that actually ChatGPT said that it was not provable, but I saw the actual video. So I looked into a Reddit post.
I've screen recorded the videos of him trying to buy women's eggs.
But
and
so Chris Hansen
posted it.
Chris Hansen actually was talking about it and was explaining, yeah, he actually did this.
Yeah.
It's to get the stem cells. It's
Yeah.
not about the adrenochrome.
No, that's not what I said with Peter Nygaard. Anyway,
Okay. So we were talking about adrenochrome before, but you did bring up him. I'm not just saying that you were saying, oh, it was adrenochrome. But I was doing research about adrenochrome and about the stem cells. So it turns out the stem cells actually don't always have the health benefits that people are saying that they have, because it could cause infection.
He wants them. You get like North Africans, Central Africans with that have pure their DNA, and then he wants so that strong DNA, no regressive genes, and then he
Recessive genes?
no recessive genes, and he mates, with these people to produce a child, and then harvests that child's stem cells because they're going to be more
Well, the
strong.
other thing I think about recessive genes is that recessive genes aren't inherently bad.
No, but that's just the philosophy, the thought of it. Why
Yeah.
he's always going with black women is because he wants to harvest that.
Recessive genes are basically like the secondary traits of the parents, but in a way that's like connected to their parents and how they got that. So yeah, there's something about how recessive genes just aren't inherently bad. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah, I mean,
they're
well-
doing stem cell research, and so some of the stem cell research is not
Maybe
as good as
reactionary-
people think it is.
Maybe reactionary genes would be a better term, because like I go along with the whole we're white because of moving to Europe and the Caucasus Mountains and just being freaking in the clouds and rain all day. So we need 40% less sunlight to get the same amount of vitamin D as a black person because of that. So it's like a reactionary thing.
So the other thing is stem cell research. The people who actually really benefit from stem cell research, I think there are people who have a condition called spina bifida,
Yeah.
and so they lack stem cells. So they actually need stem cells. So doing the stem cell research, I think they're trying to figure out how to better cure people who have things like spina bifida.
Yeah, that's not what Peter Nygaard and Zorro Ranch is doing.
But he's already misguided. So basically, the other thing is he could have been set up by people
Yes,
about the stem cell
sure,
stuff.
he set himself up with those videos.
I'm saying if he knew someone who was setting him up about stem cells.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
All right.